Michelle, you were right. That bastard really cheated on me. I didn't want to believe it, but he did. That piece of shit. I talked to a lawyer. I'm taking everything I can from that ass. The divorce. Everything. He deserves nothing.
On December 26, 2024, at 1287 East 7th Street, Austin, Texas, neighbors called the police after complaining about screams and sounds of a struggle. Upon arrival, officers discovered the body of 29-year-old Jasmine Brooks with multiple stab wounds. Surveillance cameras recorded the sequence of events leading up to the tragedy. According to the surveillance system at the Food Mart supermarket on 8th Street, at 7:21 a.m. on December 24, 2024, 29-year-old Jasmine Brooks walked through the front doors with a small shoulder bag. The camera at the checkout recorded her taking a cart and heading to the meat department. Tamika Wells, 26, the cashier working that shift, later told detectives that the customer appeared agitated and asked several times about the price of a 12-pound turkey. According to Wells, the woman took out her phone twice, checked her messages, and then put the device back in her pocket with obvious irritation. At the checkout, Jasmine paid with a debit card, but the first attempt to process the payment failed. Wells noted that the customer became visibly tense and asked to try again. The second attempt was successful, with the total purchase amounting to $137.43. At 7:48 a.m., the parking lot camera recorded Jasmine loading bags of groceries into the trunk of a white 2019 Honda Accord. The recording shows her lingering by the car, taking out her phone again, and dialing a number. The conversation lasts less than a minute, after which she abruptly ends the call and gets behind the wheel. Cashier Wells also noted that the woman's purchases included unusual items for a Christmas dinner, a large amount of alcohol, expensive delicacies, and foods that are usually bought for special occasions or when one wants to impress guests. Rita James, 54, a neighbor of the Brooks family who lives at 1285 on the same street, testified that she saw Jasmine return home at approximately 8:30 a.m. According to James, she was watering the flowers on the front porch when she heard the sound of a car pulling up. Jasmine got out of the car and began unloading bags from the trunk. At that moment, her husband, 30-year-old Cameron Brooks, came out of the house. James noted that the man stood on the porch with his phone pressed to his ear and did not help his wife with the heavy bags. When Jasmine asked him for help, he waved his hand, indicating that he was busy talking. A neighbor saw Jasmine make several trips from the car to the house, carrying the groceries by herself. According to James's observations, the woman's facial expression showed growing dissatisfaction with her husband's behavior. James also noted that Cameron's phone call lasted unusually long for the morning hours, and his voice became more sharp at times. Derek Thomas, 41, a mail carrier serving the East 7th Street area, testified that he arrived at the Brooks house at 11:15 a.m. with mail and Christmas cards. As he approached the mailbox, he heard muffled voices coming from inside the house. Thomas could not make out the words, but the tone of the conversation seemed tense to him. The mailman noted that the Brooks family was usually quiet, and such loud conversations were uncharacteristic of them. As he dropped the mail into the box, the woman's voice became more shrill, and the man's voice became lower and more threatening. Thomas hurried to finish his work and move on to the next house. He said that in 2 years of serving this route, he had never heard such sounds coming from the Brooks house, who were usually model neighbors. Marcus Hayes, 23, a courier for Dash Delivery, received an order to deliver Chinese food to 1287 East 7th Street at 12:45 p.m. According to his mobile app records, he arrived at the house at 1:18 p.m. Hayes stated that when he approached the door, he heard the sounds of an argument coming from inside. A woman was shouting something about money and cheating, and a man was responding more quietly, but aggressively. The delivery driver rang the doorbell several times, but no one answered. After a minute, a man of medium build with dark hair opened the door. According to Hayes's description, the man looked irritated and hurried the delivery driver to take the money and leave. Payment was made in cash, the exact amount without tip. As Hayes handed over the food package, he noticed a woman's voice coming from inside the house, saying something sharp and accusatory. The delivery driver also noted that the man looked flustered, as if he had recently been in a stressful situation. Footage from the First National Bank ATM on the corner of 7th Street and Lamar Boulevard recorded Cameron Brooks's arrival at 3:27 p.m. The footage shows him approaching the ATM, looking around several times, and then inserting his card into the machine. The withdrawal process took longer than usual. The man canceled the transaction twice and started over. The camera captured the moment when he received the cash and quickly counted the bills. According to bank records, $800 was withdrawn from his checking account. This was the maximum amount available for withdrawal during the day. The recording shows that Cameron is nervous. He constantly fixes his hair and checks his phone several times while waiting for the money to be dispensed. Bank security guard Frank Miller, who was watching the proceedings through the CCTV system, later stated that he found the man's behavior suspicious because of his obvious nervousness. Angela Cross, 37, who lives across the street at 1288, testified that at around 4 p.m., she saw lights turning on and off in different rooms of the Brooks house through her living room window. According to her observations, a woman was walking around the house with a phone in her hands, periodically stopping at the windows. Cross noted that her neighbor's behavior seemed strange to her. Jasmine was not usually visible from the windows during the day, as she worked in an IT company office and only returned home in the evening. On this day, the woman was clearly at home and appeared agitated. Cross saw Jasmine bring the phone to her ear, then put it away and pick it up again, as if deciding who to call. At one point, the woman pressed her hands to her face and stood motionless by the window for several seconds. The owner of Binns and Bruce's coffee shop across the street, 52-year-old Robert Garcia, told investigators that Cameron Brooks spent more than an hour at his establishment, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Garcia remembered this customer because the man ordered only one coffee but occupied a table by the window for a long time. According to the owner's observations, the visitor constantly looked in the direction of his home and went outside several times to talk on the phone. Garcia noted that during his phone calls, the man gestured and raised his voice, which could be heard even through the glass door of the coffee shop. After each call, Cameron returned to his table, drank his cold coffee, and stared out the window again. Garcia said that the customer's behavior seemed suspicious to him, as people don't usually spend so much time in a coffee shop, constantly running outside to make calls. The owner also noticed that the man checked the time on his phone several times and looked increasingly anxious as evening approached. According to WhatsApp records provided by the company in response to an official request from law enforcement, the last message from Cameron Brooks to Serenity Jones was sent at 6:41 p.m. The text of the message contained the phrase, "It's more complicated than I thought. Let's talk tomorrow." Serenity replied 7 minutes later, "What's going on? You promised to sort everything out today." Cameron read the message at 6:52 p.m., but there was no reply. Analysis of the metadata showed that Cameron's phone was in the vicinity of his home when these messages were sent and received. The Shell gas station's CCTV system at the intersection of 7th Street and Pleasant Valley recorded Jasmine's white Honda Accord filling up with gas at 4:43 p.m. Station cashier Luis Ramirez testified that the driver matched the description of Cameron Brooks. According to Ramirez, the man paid in cash and appeared agitated. When the cashier attempted to engage in small talk about the weather, the customer responded with monosyllabic answers and quickly left. Ramirez noted this as unusual behavior, as most regular customers in the area are usually more sociable. Deborah Hunter, 49, a resident of a neighboring house, testified that at 5:30 p.m., she heard the sound of a car door slamming and saw Cameron Brooks park his car in the driveway. She observed that the man sat in his car for a long time without getting out, talking on the phone. Hunter saw him gesturing during the conversation, even while in the car. When the conversation ended, Cameron sat motionless for a few more minutes, holding his head in his hands, before getting out of the car and heading for the house. According to Angela Cross's testimony, at 7:15 p.m., she saw Jasmine Brooks standing at the living room window with a phone in her hands. The neighbor noted that the woman was holding the device at arm's length, as if reading something on the screen. Jasmine's expression, visible even from across the street, seemed extremely distressed to Cross. The woman brought her hand to her forehead several times and shook her head. A few minutes later, the light in the living room went out, but the lights in the other rooms of the house remained on. Cross also noticed that Jasmine approached various windows of the house several times, each time holding the phone in her hands and staring intently at it. According to the neighbor's description, the woman's movements betrayed extreme agitation and confusion. Robert Garcia, the owner of the coffee shop, testified that at around 7:30 p.m., Cameron Brooks went outside for the fourth time that evening to make a phone call. This time, the conversation lasted much longer than the previous ones, about 10 minutes. Garcia saw through the window how the man paced back and forth on the sidewalk, gesturing animatedly. At one point, Cameron stopped, grabbed his head with his hands, and leaned over the phone as if reading something carefully. After finishing the call, he did not return to the coffee shop, but quickly walked in the direction of his home. Garcia noted that during the entire time he had been observing the customer, this last conversation was the most emotional. The man was clearly upset and raised his voice several times so loudly that he could be heard even through the glass doors of the establishment. The bank's CCTV system recorded Cameron walking past the ATM at 7:38 p.m. in the direction of his street. The recording shows the man walking at a brisk pace, constantly glancing at his phone and stopping once to answer a call. The conversation was short, no more than 30 seconds, after which Cameron put his phone in his pocket and quickened his pace. The footage shows that his gait became more abrupt and purposeful compared to when he left the coffee shop an hour earlier. Cell tower data showed that at 7:47 p.m., Serenity Jones's phone was in the vicinity of the Sapphire Lounge cocktail bar on Rainey Street, where she worked as a bartender. According to the shift logs provided by the establishment's management, Serenity was scheduled to start work at 8 p.m. Serenity's colleague, 24-year-old Christina Flowers, testified that Serenity arrived at work earlier than usual and appeared to be preoccupied. According to Flowers, Serenity kept checking her phone and tried several times to call someone, but without success. When Flowers asked if everything was okay, Serenity replied that she was having problems with an acquaintance and didn't know how things would turn out. Flowers also noted that her colleague was more distracted than usual and mixed up the orders of the first customers of the evening twice. Rita James, Brooks' neighbor, testified that at 8:10 p.m. she heard a car door slam in the driveway of the neighboring house. Looking out the window, she saw Cameron get out of a white Honda Accord and head for the front door. James noted that the man was carrying a small package and looked tense. When he opened the door to the house, she heard a woman's voice, but she couldn't make out the words. However, the tone of the voice seemed accusatory and sharp to her. James also noticed that Cameron stood on the doorstep for a long time before entering the house, as if he were gathering his courage or preparing for an unpleasant conversation. Derek Wilson, 39 years old, residing at 1291, 2 houses away from the Brooks family, testified that at around 11:30 p.m. he heard loud voices coming from the Brooks house. Wilson was taking out the trash at the time and noticed that the voices sounded unusually sharp for this usually quiet neighborhood. He could make out a woman's voice, which sounded accusatory, and a man's voice, which was becoming increasingly aggressive. Wilson hurried to put the trash cans away and returned to his house, as he did not want to eavesdrop on his neighbor's family quarrel. According to him, even from inside his house with the windows closed, he could still hear muffled sounds of the argument for several minutes. Terrence Bradley, 38, manager of the Sapphire Lounge bar, testified that Serenity Jones had not been working efficiently that night. He observed that she was constantly distracted by her phone, forgot to bring orders to customers, and appeared extremely agitated. At 9 p.m., Bradley saw Serenity leave the bar and talk on the phone for a long time in a quieter part of the establishment. When she returned to work, she looked even more upset. Bradley noted that in the 2 years Serenity had worked at his establishment, he had never seen her in such a state. She was usually a focused and professional worker. Isaiah Morgan, 62, a former military man who lived at 1283, right next door to the Brookses, gave the most detailed account of the evening's events. According to him, at 9:15 p.m., he heard loud voices through the thin wall separating the two houses. Morgan noted that at first he heard a woman's voice saying something about lies and betrayal. Then, a man's voice began to respond more loudly, and the tone of the conversation changed from accusatory to threatening. Morgan, who had military experience, recognized intonations in the man's voice that usually precede physical violence. He also heard the sounds of furniture being moved and footsteps, as if there was some kind of struggle or active movement in the house. According to phone records provided by the cell phone operator at 9:23 p.m., Serenity Jones made a call to Cameron Brooks' number. The call lasted 37 seconds and was terminated by the caller. 2 minutes later, Serenity tried to call again, but the call went unanswered. Analysis of cell tower data showed that Cameron's phone was in the vicinity of his home on East 7th Street at the time of the calls. Maria Gonzalez, 43, owner of the Quick Stop store on the corner of 7th Street, testified that at around 9:21 p.m., she saw a white Honda Accord drive past her store several times in different directions. According to her description, the car was driving slowly, as if the driver was looking for something or watching something. Gonzalez noted this as unusual, since their street is not a thoroughfare, and local residents do not usually drive back and forth without a purpose. She saw the car at least 3 times in a 15-minute period. At 9:27 p.m., Isaiah Morgan heard the sound of furniture falling and a woman screaming. This was followed by a series of thuds, as if someone were hitting a wall or the floor. The woman's screams became more desperate, then suddenly stopped. Morgan testified that the silence that followed the sounds of struggle seemed ominous to him. He waited a few minutes, listening, but no more sounds came from the neighboring house. In his military experience, such sudden silence after the sounds of struggle was a bad sign. A surveillance camera across the street, installed by the Cross family to monitor their parking space, recorded the front door of the Brooks house opening at 9:41 p.m. and Cameron coming out. The recording shows the man carrying an oblong package wrapped in dark fabric. Cameron walked down the path to the trash cans and placed the bundle in one of the bins. He then returned to the house, but a few minutes later came out again with another bag and also threw it in the trash. The recording shows the man's cautious movements. He looked around several times before approaching the bins. Angela Cross testified that at 10:05 p.m., she saw a light come on in the basement of the Brooks house. She noted this as unusual, as she had never seen the neighbors use the basement in the evening before. The light in the basement was on for about half an hour, then went out. Cross also noted that the lights in the rest of the house did not come on again until morning. According to her observations, there were no signs of life or movement in the house after the basement light went out. The automatic recording system of the 911 emergency response service recorded a call at 11:12 p.m. from Isaiah Morgan's phone number. In the recording, a man can be heard telling the operator about suspicious noises coming from the neighboring house, including screams and sounds of a struggle. Morgan asked to check on the residents, as the sounds of conflict were followed by complete silence. The operator logged the call and promised to send a patrol car to check. The recording of the conversation reveals concern in the caller's voice, who emphasized that the sounds were very loud and stopped suddenly. According to the duty log of the East Austin Police Station, patrol car number 117, manned by officers Javier Rodriguez and Jennifer Lee, was dispatched to 1287 East 7th Street at 11:28 p.m. The officers arrived at the scene at 11:51 p.m. and conducted an external inspection of the house. Rodriguez reported that only one room on the first floor had its lights on and that the windows were closed. The officers knocked on the door, but no one answered. After several attempts to establish contact with the residents, the patrol officers decided that the situation did not require forced entry into the house and left the scene at 12:17 a.m. The duty report noted that an external inspection of the house revealed no signs of forced entry or disturbance. Christina Flowers stated that Serenity Jones left work at 11:30 p.m., citing family circumstances. According to Flowers, her colleague appeared very upset and said she needed to go somewhere urgently. Manager Terrence Bradley confirmed that he had let Serenity leave before the end of her shift due to her obvious emotional state. According to the bar's parking lot surveillance footage, Serenity got into her car and quickly drove away in the direction of the city center. At 8 a.m. on December 25th, Isaiah Morgan went out to the front porch of his house to get the morning newspaper. According to his testimony, he noticed that the front door of the Brooks house next door was open about 6 inches. Morgan noted this as unusual, as the Brooks family always locked their house carefully, especially in winter. After waiting a few minutes and seeing no movement in the house, he decided to go closer and check on the situation. According to Morgan, the cold morning air and the strange silence coming from the house heightened his concern after the events of the previous evening. At 8:07 a.m., Morgan approached the door and called out to his neighbors. Receiving no response, he pushed the door slightly, and it opened completely. According to his testimony, there was overturned furniture in the hallway, and dark spots were visible on the floor. Morgan called out again, louder, but there was no response. Sensing that something was wrong, he entered the house and headed toward the living room. According to his description, the air in the house was heavy and had a distinctive metallic smell, which he recognized from his military experience. In the living room, Morgan discovered the body of Jasmine Brooks. The woman was lying on the floor next to an overturned coffee table in a pool of blood. Morgan, who had medical training from his military service, immediately realized that the woman was dead. There were multiple stab wounds to her chest and abdomen. A bloody kitchen knife with a wooden handle lay next to the body. According to Morgan's testimony, the scene indicated a violent struggle. Furniture was scattered, blood spatters were visible on the walls, and the carpet had been moved. At 8:11 a.m., Morgan called emergency services. A recording of his conversation with the operator captured his message. "I need the police and an ambulance at East 7th, 1287. There's a dead woman here, a lot of blood, looks like a murder." The operator asked him not to touch anything at the scene and to stay on the line until the services arrived. In the recording of the conversation, Morgan can be heard describing what he saw in a calm but alarmed voice, pausing periodically to look around the scene again. The first patrol car arrived at 8:19 a.m. Officers Michael Thompson and Sarah Davis conducted a preliminary examination of the scene and confirmed the death of Jasmine Brooks. Thompson recorded the time the body was discovered and began cordoning off the area with yellow tape. Davis interviewed Isaiah Morgan and recorded his statement about the previous evening's events. According to the initial inspection report compiled by Officer Thompson, signs of violent death and a serious struggle were found at the scene. Detective Tyrone Clark, 41, a senior investigator with the Austin Police Department's Homicide Division, received notification of the incident at 8:32 a.m. on his work phone and arrived at the crime scene at 9:15 a.m. Clark had 15 years of experience investigating homicides and specialized in domestic crimes. Upon arrival, he took command of the investigation and began a systematic examination of the scene according to standard police department protocol. A preliminary examination of the victim's body, recorded in Detective Clark's report, revealed 7 stab wounds of varying depths. Clark noted that the wounds were located in the chest, abdomen, and back, indicating multiple stab wounds. The nature of the injuries indicated that the attack was carried out at close range and was extremely violent. The absence of defensive wounds on the victim's hands and forearms suggested that the attack was sudden, or that the victim was taken by surprise. An examination of the living room, described in detail in the police report, revealed signs of a serious struggle. The coffee table had been overturned, the lamp broken, and the sofa cushions scattered across the floor. There were blood spatters on the wall at a height of about 5 feet, and drag marks on the carpet. Clark noted the location of the murder weapon, a kitchen knife with a 6-inch blade, which lay 3 feet from the victim's body. According to the detective's conclusion, the knife had been thrown or dropped during the struggle. At 9:45 a.m., a team of forensic investigators led by Lisa Chen, a crime scene analyst with 12 years of experience, arrived at the scene. Chen and her team began taking detailed photographs and collecting physical evidence in accordance with the guidelines of the Forensic Service. Particular attention was paid to fingerprints on the murder weapon, blood samples, and possible DNA traces on the victim's clothing. The preliminary report from the forensic team included a diagram of the evidence layout and photographs of the scene from different angles. Detective Clark conducted a detailed interview with Isaiah Morgan, who recounted the sounds of an argument and struggle he had heard the night before. Morgan described in detail the chronology of events, from loud voices to an ominous silence. He also reported his call to emergency services and the ineffective investigation conducted by patrol officers. Clark's report highlighted the witness's military experience and his ability to accurately identify the nature of the sounds, which lent additional credibility to his testimony. Angela Cross testified that she had seen lights in the windows of the Brooks home the night before. She described a light in the basement that remained on for about half an hour after the sounds of the argument, and that she saw no further movement in the house until morning. Cross also provided recordings from her home surveillance system, which were immediately seized for examination. The transcript of Cross's interview notes the exact time frame of her observations and a description of the actions she saw from her home. At 10:30 a.m., Detective Clark noted the absence of the victim's husband, Cameron Brooks. A search of the house did not reveal his presence, and some of his personal belongings were missing. The family car, a white Honda Accord, was also missing from the driveway. Clark immediately issued an alert for the car with license plates registered to Jasmine Brooks. The alert was sent to all Travis County Police Departments. An inspection of the second-floor bedroom, documented in the detective's report, revealed signs of a hasty departure. The closet was open, clothes were scattered on the floor, and the dresser drawers had been pulled out. The victim's phone was found on the nightstand and was seized for digital forensics. Blood-stained towels were found in the bathroom, which had obviously been used in an attempt to clean up the crime scene. All items were described in the inventory of physical evidence. Forensic investigators found several important pieces of evidence in a dumpster behind the house. Among the discarded trash were a blood-stained men's shirt, size medium, rubber gloves, and rags, apparently used to wipe up blood. All items were seized for laboratory analysis for DNA and other biological traces. The accompanying documentation from the forensic experts indicated the exact location of each item in the container and included photographs. At 11:15 a.m., a radio broadcast issued an alert for Cameron Brooks as a person wanted for questioning in connection with the murder of his wife. The alert included his description: 5 feet 10 inches tall, 170 pounds, dark hair, brown eyes, as well as his license plate number. All patrol crews were instructed to exercise caution during the arrest, as the suspect could be emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous. Analysis of Cross's home security footage confirmed the neighbors' statements about the previous evening's events. The recording clearly showed the moment when Cameron carried the bundles to the trash cans, as well as the time when the lights in the house went out, and no further movement was visible. The technical report on the analysis of the video recordings contained time codes and a description of the actions recorded. Rita James provided additional testimony about the Brooks family's behavior in the days leading up to the tragedy. According to her observations, there had been frequent heated conversations between the spouses over the past week, which she had heard through the open windows. James also noted that Cameron had been away from home more often and returning at unusual times. Her testimony was recorded in an additional witness interrogation report. criminalist Lisa Chen made a preliminary conclusion about the nature of the crime. In her opinion, the multiple stab wounds and their location indicated a murder committed in a state of extreme emotional excitement. The absence of signs of forced entry and the nature of the struggle suggested that the perpetrator was familiar with the victim and had access to the house. The preliminary expert report was attached to the case file. Detective Clark organized a door-to-door canvass of neighboring houses to gather additional witness statements. Interviews with residents of the street revealed that the Brooks family had recently been less reserved than usual, and neighbors had periodically heard loud conversations coming from their home. The summary report of the interviews contained statements from 7 witnesses, confirming the escalation of family conflict. At 11:47 a.m., Patrol Crew Number 204, consisting of officers Robert Hill and Melissa Garcia, discovered a white Honda Accord in the parking lot of the Southgate Mall in South Austin. The car was parked in the far corner of the parking lot, away from the main flow of shoppers. Hill reported the discovery of the wanted vehicle by radio and requested additional forces to apprehend the suspect. According to the patrol report, the car had been parked for several hours, as the hood was cold. Cameron Brooks was found in the mall's cafeteria at 12:03 p.m., sitting at a table with a cup of coffee and looking out the window. According to Officer Hill's testimony, the man did not resist arrest and calmly agreed to go to the police station for questioning. A personal search revealed no weapons on his person, only a wallet with documents and a cell phone. The arrest report noted that the suspect appeared tired and showed no surprise at the appearance of the police officers. At 1:20 p.m., Detective Tyrone Clark began questioning Cameron Brooks in interrogation room number 3 at the East Austin Police Station. In accordance with standard procedure, the entire conversation was recorded on audio media, and a written record was also kept. Clark read the suspect his rights in accordance with the Supreme Court decision in Miranda v. Arizona, and obtained written consent to testify without the presence of an attorney. At the beginning of the audio recording, Clark can be heard introducing himself and explaining the interrogation procedure. When asked about his whereabouts the night before, Cameron replied that he had been at home with his wife all evening on December 24th. According to him, they were preparing Christmas dinner and watching television. Cameron claimed that around 10:30 p.m., they had a minor argument about plans for the next day, after which he decided to leave the house for a few hours to calm down. In the audio recording, his voice trembles as he describes the argument, and he pauses several times for long periods. Detective Clark asked the suspect to clarify where exactly he went after leaving the house. Cameron replied that he went to his friend Marcus Hayes' house, where he spent several hours talking and drinking beer. According to his version of events, he returned home around 3 a.m., found his wife asleep, and went to sleep in the guest room so as not to wake her. In the morning, he said, he woke up late and found that Jasmine was not responding to his attempts to wake her up. The interrogation report notes that when describing the discovery of his wife's body, the suspect turned pale and clenched his fists. Clark asked why Cameron did not call emergency services after discovering his wife's body. The suspect explained that he was frightened and panicked because he realized that he would inevitably be suspected of murder. He claimed that he decided to leave to think about the situation and figure out what to do. Cameron insisted on his innocence and claimed that he loved his wife and would never have harmed her. The audio recording reveals signs of emotional distress, a trembling voice, and rapid breathing. The detective showed Cameron photographs from the crime scene, including images of the bloody knife and the ransacked living room. Upon seeing the images, the suspect recoiled from the table and covered his face with his hands. He repeated that he had nothing to do with his wife's death and suggested that a burglar might have broken into the house. Clark noted in the report that the suspect's reaction to the photographs appeared sincere, but his explanations contained logical inconsistencies. The verification of Cameron's alibi revealed the first contradictions in his testimony. Marcus Hayes, whom the suspect named as his alibi, claimed in a telephone conversation with the detective that he had not seen Cameron on the evening of December 24th. According to Hayes, he had been at home with his family all evening and could confirm this. This information was recorded in the alibi verification report and immediately presented to the suspect. When Clark informed Cameron that his alibi was false, he became visibly flustered and began nervously fixing his hair. He changed his testimony, stating that he had mixed up the days and had actually spent the evening alone, walking around the city and thinking about family problems. The suspect claimed to have visited several bars in the city center, but could not name them or describe the staff. The interrogation report noted significant changes in the suspect's testimony and his nervous behavior. In parallel with the interrogation of the main suspect, Detectives Clark and Rodriguez conducted additional interviews with neighbors to gather more detailed information about the events of the previous days. Deborah Hunter, who lives in the house across the street, testified that a week ago she heard a loud argument between the Brooks couple late at night. According to her, the conflict lasted about an hour, and she heard dishes being broken. Hunter noted that such incidents had become more frequent in the last month. The owner of the neighboring house, James Walker, 71, told detectives about his observations of Cameron Brooks' behavior in recent weeks. Walker said the man often left the house at unusual times and returned late at night. Walker also saw Cameron talking on the phone several times in his car, parked on the street, instead of going into the house. The witness described his neighbor's behavior as secretive and suspicious. A systematic analysis of CCTV footage from the area revealed important information about the suspect's movements. A bank camera recorded a white Honda Accord driving past an ATM at 10:43 p.m. on December 24th, heading away from the Brooks residence. This contradicted Cameron's statement that he left the house around 10:30 p.m. The police technical service compiled a detailed map of the car's route, based on recordings from various surveillance cameras. Footage from a Texaco gas station showed the same car filling up with gas at 11:17 p.m. The station attendant, Carlos Mendez, identified Cameron Brooks as the driver, who paid in cash and appeared extremely agitated. According to Mendez, the customer dropped the money several times and did not respond to attempts to strike up a conversation. This information was recorded in a separate witness statement report. Detective Clark presented Cameron with evidence of his lie regarding the time he left home. When he saw the time codes from the surveillance camera recordings, the suspect swallowed and began nervously tapping his fingers on the table. He admitted that he had mixed up the times and had indeed left later than he had previously stated. Cameron explained his lie by saying he was afraid and confused, claiming that he did not want to aggravate his situation with inaccurate testimony. Analysis of the contents of the trash container behind Brooks' house provided additional evidence against the suspect. Among the discarded items, forensic experts found not only blood-stained clothing, but also torn documents. Reconstruction of the document fragments showed that they were printouts of electronic messages between Cameron and an unidentified female. Handwriting analysis confirmed that the documents had been torn by the suspect's hand. The Technical Examination Service completed a preliminary analysis of the victim's phone, which was seized at the crime scene. Text messages sent the day before the murder were found in the device's memory, in which Jasmine wrote to her friend about her suspicions of her husband's infidelity. In one of the messages, she mentioned that she had found evidence of Cameron's affair and planned to talk to him about it. This correspondence was seized and attached to the criminal case file. Detective Rodriguez conducted a telephone survey of Jasmine's colleagues at the IT company Tech Solutions. Department head Jennifer Stewart confirmed that Jasmine had seemed depressed in recent weeks and had been late for work several times, which was unusual for her. Stewart also noted that the employee had become more withdrawn and avoided discussing personal topics with her colleagues. The testimony was recorded in an additional witness interview report. A re-examination of the Cross family's surveillance camera footage revealed additional details about the events of the night of the murder. The footage showed Cameron taking items to the dumpster not twice, as originally reported, but 3 times, several minutes apart. Each time he went out, he looked around cautiously and moved quickly, indicating an attempt to conceal his actions. The time codes on the recording matched exactly the period after the sounds of struggle in the house had ceased. The examination of fingerprints on the murder weapon yielded preliminary results. Clear prints belonging to Cameron Brooks were found on the knife handle, as well as partial prints belonging to the victim. The location of the prints indicated that the knife was held in a fighting grip, typical for striking blows. The conclusion of the fingerprint examination was recorded in a separate document and attached to the case file. At 2:40 p.m., Detective Clark sent a request to the Sapphire Lounge cocktail bar demanding the contact information of employee Serenity Jones for investigative purposes. The manager of the establishment, Terrence Bradley, immediately provided her address and phone number and confirmed that Serenity had worked the previous evening but had left earlier than usual. According to the bar's personnel department, Serenity Jones, 26, had been working at the establishment for a year and a half and was described as a reliable employee with no disciplinary issues. Bradley also provided copies of timesheets confirming Cameron Brooks' regular visits to the establishment in recent months. Serenity was taken to the police station for questioning at 3:28 p.m. after detectives found her at the apartment address provided by the bar's management. Upon first contact, she appeared distraught and asked several times if something had happened to Cameron. According to the arrest report, the woman did not resist and agreed to accompany the officers to the station voluntarily. The accompanying documents note that she insisted on contacting a lawyer. Detective Rodriguez, who accompanied her to the station, noted in his report that on the way, Serenity tried several times to find out the details of the incident and expressed concern about Cameron's fate. Serenity Jones's interrogation began at 4:15 p.m. in room number 2, led by Detective Clark and witnessed by Detective Rodriguez. According to the audio recording, after being read her rights and obtaining written consent to testify, Serenity confirmed that she was acquainted with Cameron Brooks and had been in a relationship with him for the past 6 months. When Cameron's name was mentioned, her voice trembled noticeably, and she sighed deeply several times. Serenity nervously fiddled with a ring on her finger and avoided looking directly at the detectives, which was recorded in the minutes as signs of emotional distress. When asked about the nature of her relationship with the suspect, Serenity admitted that they had been having an affair. She explained that she had met Cameron at her bar, where he often spent his evenings complaining about his marital problems. According to her, Cameron claimed that his wife did not understand him and that their relationship had long since reached an impasse. Serenity described Cameron as a charming and attentive man who promised to divorce his wife and start a new life. In the audio recording, her voice becomes softer and more nostalgic as she talks about their relationship. She described in detail how Cameron gave her gifts, took her to restaurants, and talked about their plans for the future. Detective Clark asked about the couple's plans for the future. Serenity said that Cameron had promised to tell his wife about the affair right after the Christmas holidays and file for divorce at the beginning of the new year. According to her, they even discussed the possibility of moving together to another city where Cameron could find a new job in photography. Serenity admitted that she believed his promises and made serious plans for their future together. As she talked about her unfulfilled plans, she covered her face with her hands and became visibly upset. The woman also mentioned that Cameron showed her ads for apartments in other cities and even suggested that she quit her job at the bar, promising to provide for her financially. When the detective asked about her last communication with Cameron, Serenity confirmed that she had received a message from him the night before. She described it as strange and disturbing, as Cameron wrote about some difficulties and postponed the conversation until the next day. Serenity admitted that she tried to call him in the evening, but he did not answer her calls. The woman explained her early departure from work by her concern for Cameron and her desire to find out what had happened. The interrogation report notes that she nervously fiddled with the edge of her jacket as she recalled the last message. Serenity also said that they had planned to meet after her work the day before, but Cameron canceled at the last minute, citing family circumstances. Detective Clark informed Serenity of Jasmine Brooks' death and Cameron's arrest on suspicion of murder. The woman's reaction was violent and emotional. She jumped up from her chair, grabbed the edge of the table, and repeated several times that it was impossible. Serenity claimed that Cameron had never shown aggression in her presence and could not have committed murder. She insisted that he was a loving and gentle man who simply found himself in an unhappy marriage. The audio recording captures the interviewee's sobs and trembling voice. The woman asked for a glass of water and was unable to continue the conversation for several minutes, pressing her hands to her chest and trying to catch her breath. Parallel to Serenity's interrogation, an in-depth examination of the crime scene was conducted by a team of specialists led by criminologist Lisa Chen. A re-examination of the house revealed additional attempts to conceal traces of the crime. Remnants of cleaning products and traces of recent cleaning were found in the bathroom on the second floor. An examination of the bathtub drain revealed the presence of washed-away blood particles, and an analysis of the used towels revealed attempts to wipe blood stains from various surfaces. The technical service also found traces of washing powder and fabric softener in the washing machine, used in unusually large quantities, indicating an attempt to remove biological traces from clothing or other textile items. An additional inspection of the basement, where, according to Cross's neighbor, a light was shining on the night of the murder, revealed another attempt to destroy evidence. Remains of burned papers and photographs were found in a corner of the basement. Among the unburned fragments, forensic experts found pieces of personal correspondence and photographs of Cameron with an unknown woman. Handwriting analysis confirmed that the notes were written by the suspect. All the materials found were seized and added to the case as material evidence. Analysis of the ashes showed that not only paper documents had been burned, but also plastic items, possibly memory cards or flash drives. The Technical Examination Service completed its analysis of the suspect's telephone calls over the past month. A detailed printout of the calls showed intensive communication between Cameron and Serenity, an average of 15 to 20 calls per day and several hundred text messages. Analysis of the content of the correspondence, obtained from the cell phone operator through a court order, revealed discussions of plans for a future together and Cameron's constant complaints about family life. The expert report specifically noted messages from the last week, in which Cameron wrote about increasing pressure at home and the need to make drastic decisions. Experts also found deleted messages recovered from the carrier's servers in which Cameron discussed the financial aspects of the divorce with Serenity and expressed concerns about the possible division of property. An analysis of the suspect's banking transactions over the past 3 months revealed suspicious financial activity. Detectives found that Cameron had withdrawn large amounts of cash and spent it on gifts, dinners at restaurants, and other expenses not related to the family budget. A comparison of the dates of the expenditures with telephone records showed that most of the large expenditures coincided with meetings with Serenity. The summary report of the financial investigation indicated that the total amount of hidden expenditures was more than $5,000. Bank statements also showed that Cameron had opened a separate savings account to which he transferred small amounts, apparently setting aside money for a future life with his mistress. An examination of digital devices found evidence on the victim's phone that she was aware of her husband's affair. 2 weeks before the murder, Jasmine searched the internet for keywords such as signs of cheating and how to catch a cheating husband. She also visited forums for women in difficult family situations and saved articles about divorce and property division. An analysis of her browser history showed that the victim had systematically studied the legal aspects of divorce and the financial consequences of dissolution of marriage. In addition, photos of the bank app screen with suspicious expenses and screenshots of Cameron's correspondence which Jasmine had secretly taken while studying his messages, were found in the phone's memory. At 5:45 p.m., Detective Clark began re-questioning Cameron Brooks, presenting new evidence. The suspect was notified of the results of Serenity Jones's interrogation and the technical examination. When his mistress's name was mentioned, Cameron visibly paled and began to tap his foot nervously under the table. He continued to deny his involvement in the murder, but admitted to the extramarital affair. Cameron claimed that he had planned to be honest with his wife about the affair and discussed the possibility of a civilized divorce. The interrogation report notes that when discussing his relationship with Serenity, the suspect became more animated and emotional, which contrasted with his depressed state when discussing his wife's death. The detective showed Cameron printouts of his correspondence with Serenity, where they discussed plans for a future together and complaints about his wife. While reading his own messages, the suspect clenched and unclenched his fists several times, and his breathing became more rapid. Clark paid particular attention to messages from the last week, where Cameron wrote that the situation was becoming unbearable and that something needed to change. In the audio recording of the interrogation, the suspect's voice can be heard becoming quieter and more uncertain. Messages in which he promised Serenity that everything will be resolved very soon and that they would finally be able to be together without obstacles provoked a particularly strong reaction. The presentation of evidence of financial expenditures on his mistress caused Cameron to have another bout of nervousness. He covered his face with his hands and remained silent for several minutes, after which he admitted that he had indeed spent family money on his relationship with Serenity. Cameron explained his actions by saying that for the first time in many years, he felt happy and could not deny himself this feeling. According to him, he planned to talk honestly with his wife after the holidays and settle financial issues in a civilized manner. The suspect also admitted to the existence of a secret bank account, explaining that he wanted to ensure financial stability for starting a new life with Serenity. Detective Clark presented the suspect with evidence that his wife knew about the affair and was preparing for a divorce. The display of Jasmine's search engine printouts and articles she had saved about divorce made a strong impression on Cameron. He remained silent for a long time, studying the documents, and then said that he did not know that his wife was aware of his infidelity. The interrogation report states that when presented with evidence of the victim's awareness, the suspect lowered his head and sighed deeply several times. Cameron admitted that he was afraid of his wife's reaction and did not know how to start the conversation about divorce. He claimed that he hoped for a peaceful resolution to the situation and did not expect Jasmine to already know about his infidelity. An examination of bloodstains on clothing found in a dumpster confirmed that the biological material belonged to the victim. DNA analysis also revealed the suspect's hair and skin particles on the clothing, indicating his direct involvement in the violent acts. The forensic medical examination report contained a detailed description of the nature of the bloodstains and their correspondence to the victim's injuries. The examination data was formalized in a separate report and attached to the criminal case file. Additional analysis showed the presence of microparticles of the victim's skin under the suspect's fingernails, indicating a physical struggle and attempts by the victim to defend himself. Technical examination recovered additional fragments of burned documents from the basement. Among the recovered materials were drafts of letters addressed to Serenity, in which Cameron described his plans to get rid of the obstacles to their mutual happiness. One of the fragments contained the words that some problems can only be solved by drastic measures. Handwriting analysis and linguistic analysis confirmed that these notes belonged to the suspect and were written in the period immediately preceding the murder. At 6:30 p.m., Detective Clark received the final results of a comprehensive forensic medical examination conducted by a team of specialists led by Dr. Richard Stone, Chief Medical Examiner for Travis County. The report contained a detailed analysis of all the physical evidence collected and its connection to the suspect's testimony. According to the expert opinion, the nature of the victim's injuries and the location of the bloodstains on the suspect's clothing clearly indicated his direct involvement in the murder. The document emphasized that the number and depth of the stab wounds indicated that the crime was premeditated. Additional examination of the murder weapon revealed not only Cameron's fingerprints, but also microscopic fibers from his clothing on the knife handle. Laboratory analysis showed that the fibers found matched the suspect's shirt, which was discovered in a trash can. Forensic expert Lisa Chen noted in her conclusion that such a large amount of different pieces of evidence pointing to one person virtually ruled out the possibility of their accidental appearance or falsification. The technical report was prepared in accordance with all the requirements of procedural law. Analysis of the gas station's CCTV footage provided additional evidence of attempts to cover up the crime. Police technical service specialists reconstructed a clear image of Cameron refueling his car late at night. The recording showed him repeatedly looking around and nervously checking the time on his phone. The station cashier provided additional testimony about the strange behavior of the customer, who paid with trembling hands and dropped several bills on the floor. All these details were systematized in a summary report on the behavioral characteristics of the suspect. In the afternoon, the investigation team received the results of the examination of the burned documents from the basement of the Brooks house. Experts managed to recover fragments of personal correspondence between Cameron and Serenity, as well as draft messages in which he planned to confess his infidelity to his wife. Among the recovered texts were various explanations in which Cameron tried to find the words to talk to Jasmine about divorce. Handwriting analysis confirmed that all the documents belonged to the suspect. An analysis of the time they were created showed that most of the notes were made a week before the murder. Detective Rodriguez completed interviews with colleagues and friends of the Brooks family, which revealed additional evidence of a family crisis. The victim's friend, Michelle Taylor, said that Jasmine had recently complained about her husband's strange behavior and suspected him of infidelity. According to Taylor, Jasmine had planned to hire a private investigator to follow Cameron, but had not had time to carry out her plans. Taylor also confirmed that the victim was preparing for a possible divorce and had consulted with a family lawyer. All the testimony was recorded in the minutes of the additional witness interviews. At 7:15 p.m., Detective Clark began the final interrogation of Cameron Brooks, presenting him with a complete set of evidence. The suspect was presented with the results of all the expert examinations, witness statements, and a reconstructed chronology of the events of the night of the murder. While reviewing the case materials, Cameron interrupted his reading several times to wipe sweat from his forehead, and his hands trembled noticeably as he turned the pages. The audio recording of the interrogation reveals the suspect's rapid breathing and long pauses between the detective's questions and his answers. Clark methodically presented the investigation's version of the events of that fateful evening. According to the detectives, Jasmine confronted her husband with evidence of his infidelity, which led to a heated argument. During the conflict, Cameron, realizing that his deception had been exposed and that he was in danger of losing his accustomed lifestyle, grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed his wife multiple times. After the murder, he attempted to cover up the traces of the crime by throwing away his blood-stained clothes and burning compromising documents in the basement. While recounting this version of events, the suspect repeatedly closed his eyes and shook his head, as if trying to rid himself of unpleasant memories. The presentation of reconstructed fragments of his own correspondence made a particularly strong impression on Cameron. He was silent for a long time, looking at the burnt scraps of paper with his own handwriting, and then said that he remembered writing these notes. Cameron admitted that he had planned to talk to his wife honestly and civilly, but things did not go as he had imagined. The interrogation report notes that as he said this, the suspect's voice became barely audible, and he slumped and avoided looking the detective in the eye.